For those of you who are just joining us, my name is Jim Bernau. I'm the founder and CEO of Willamette Valley Vineyards. I've actually been living on the property since 1983. Here you see an image of the first planting that I did starting back then. And it's now called the Bernau Block. And so when you see our Pinot Noir named Bernau Block, these are the vines that where that wine comes from. I want to thank you all very much for joining us to hear this presentation about our preferred stock offering. It's a $10.7 million Series A preferred stock. Now that is, a NASDAQ listed stock. What's unusual about this is that we're selling the stock directly to save the money that an investment banker would charge to sell the stock, so that saves that cost of the commissions to the investor and to the company. But it also allows us to target the sale of the preferred stock to those that are most likely to be of great benefit to the investor and to the company. And that's community leaders and sophisticated wine enthusiasts, or people who are just love Oregon wine and want to be a part of growing our industry. The stock is selling for $5.05 a share. It will go up on October 1st to $5.15 a share. And it pays a dividend, an annual dividend of 22 cents a share, which is a fixed dividend amount that's paid annually. Again, this vineyard that's in front of you is the first 15 acres that I planted. It's called Bernau Block. Susan Sokolblasser actually came down and helped me lay out the vine rows and provided me my very first plants, a natural clone called Primard. I got some other plants from the Castiles at Bethel Heights. And then when Robert Drouin suggested that we bring in the 667 and 777, we traveled with our governor on a trade mission to Burgundy to convince the Burgundians to continue to send us natural clones, Dijon clones of Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. And so we, after that trip, received the 667 and 777. So that's the other two clones that are in this vineyard. On this call, I have Christine Clare, who's our winery director. She's actually in training to replace me as I age. And she's actually been doing that for a number of years. And we have Mandy Morgan, who is our head of marketing and communications. They have a Q&A. You've got a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You're able to ask questions, put your name in, ask questions, and they'll answer them as best they can during this presentation. And then Christine Clare will save some of those questions to ask me directly and for me to answer for all of you to hear those answers. So that'll be coming up at the end of this presentation. You know, the one of the secret ingredients really to our success are our owners, and our shareholders have over time through common stock initially when I first did the stock offering back in 1988. It was actually the very first consumer-owned company in the country. We did the first successful Regulation A self-underwritten stock offering under the rules of the Securities and Exchange Commission. It's now called crowdfunding, but it's given us a unique strength. And so there's information that you'll receive as prospective investors. You'll receive a prospectus. You'll also receive information you can read about, which is an 8K, a Form 10Q, which is the latest Q, audited, the reviewed financial results. And then you'll receive also a Form 10K, which is the audited annual report. And we have been subject, of course, to independent audits since that time. And so there's a lot of financial history that you can rely on in reviewing the company and whether or not it's suitable to you in the risks and the opportunities that are presented to you in this offering. One of the things I wanted to just briefly mention is that this is unusual as a stock offering in that I believe it's the first time that anyone has actually taken an application in stock sales. And so in this preferred stock ownership application, we're really trying to qualify those who want to buy our preferred stock. As you know, we limit the amounts at a minimum and a maximum so that no one individual or organization can obtain a lot of this preferred stock. What we want to do is spread ownership around to many wine enthusiasts. And we ask these questions, and this allows us to help identify those individuals that would really be most valuable to the company. Are they interested in converting their dividend to a wine credit where they can buy wine with their dividend at an advantage, a 15% increase in the value of the dividend, basically a dividend conversion to a wine credit? Or would they be interested in becoming part of the wine club? Those are just things that help qualify the level of interest by the preferred stock subscriber in supporting the company. And this has really been one of the reasons why we have been so successful. Some of the benefits of being a shareholder are that you get 25% off from bottle one when you buy wine from the winery. And of course, when you go to any one of our locations, like our future tasting room restaurants, you won't see a markup on those wines like you would in a normal restaurant setting. You also get complimentary hosted tastings that by reservation once a month. We have special owner flights. We offer library wines to our owners, small production wines that only owners are able to access. And that's especially important for those who live far away and are not able to come to the winery, but only infrequently or at all. So getting access to those wines is very important. We also offer preferred seating with advanced reservation for our owners. And then, as I've mentioned, an ability to convert your dividend for 15% more in value, and then apply that to any wine or food purchase at any one of our locations. And you can also allow that to accumulate. I know some people are doing that because they want to hold a special event at the winery for a family member, and they want to apply the accumulated value of their dividend and their increase in value for a special purpose. Now, the other thing that's advantageous to those who are owners is that they can apply their wine credit converted from a dividend beginning in October 1, which is actually before a dividend would normally be paid. They're paid at the end of the year and received in January if you receive a check for your dividends. Now here you can see our Vineyard Holdings. And it looks like my picture might be covering up one of our Vineyard Holdings in the Walla Walla AVA. I'm not sure what to do about that. But that is in the right-hand side of your screen. But if you look first at the Willamette Valley, here you can see our estate vineyard, vineyard called Elton, which we lease, but have negotiated the purchase, the right to purchase that vineyard from the founder. We have Ingram Estate, which we own in part. We own about 70 some acres, which is 60 some acres is planted. And then the balance we lease. Then you can see Bernau Estate, which we're buying under contract, Loaiza Vineyard, which we own outright, and then 12 and Estate Vineyard, which we own, and then portions of that are on a sale leaseback. So that's what we have in the Willamette Valley. A lot of people don't understand just how big the Willamette Valley is. It's as large as the state of Connecticut. And so that kind of helps you learn a little bit more about how we're affected by weather or climatic conditions or other conditions, even smoke conditions from forest fires. This is a very large valley. And of course, these vineyards are influenced differently in their microclimates. Over on the northeast part of the state, in the Walla Walla, the AVA, the Walla Walla Valley, we have several vineyards there. One's called Pambrin, which is above the Seven Hills Vineyard for Cabernet Sauvignon principally. And then Maison Bleu Vineyard, which is in the Rocks district of Milton Freewater. And we're actually working in a project with the city of Milton Freewater where they're helping us bring out city water to our site, where we have a plan to build a winery, restaurant, and provide lodging at the entrance to the Rocks District. We own that property right on the corner of Highway 11 and Sunnyside Road. And it's already, it's not all planted yet, but it's already planted with some Syrah and producing Syrah. You know, you can go into the annual report in the 10K and you can read all about these Vineyard Holdings. You know, we own 705 acres and then we lease 315 acres. So a total of over 1,000 acres. You'll read about those different vineyards and how much is productive, what's pre-productive, what's plantable in the 10K. But as you can see, there's a lot of assets that support the value of the company. Now, this is one particular piece of property that we own. It's 40 acres. You can see where that arrow goes and points to it. It borders Highway 99 and McDougall Road. So it's right across McDougall Road from Stoller Family Estate. And it's a very short distance from Domaine Willamette, which is our Method Champenoise sparkling winery facility, which will be open in May of 2022. And this new production site is really for an expansion winery. What's happened is we've done so well that we're literally running out of capacity here at the Salem Hills Estate, where I started. And we're scheduled to make over 200,000 cases, and that's pushing it. And so we're starting to work now on preparing to build an expansion winery on this new site. You know, it's a great place to be in the Dundee Hills AVA. It's really regarded as the Grand Cru of the Oregon. And so we're looking forward to increasing our presence in the Dundee Hills AVA. Here you can see just a listing of some of the accolades of our wines. As you know, the Oregon wine industry has, in a fairly short period of time, think about it just beginning with, you know, with Hillcrest Vineyard, right, back in the very early 1960s. Richard Summer started that vineyard. He was the first to bring Pinot Noir into Oregon, and he hired my dad to help him get a winery license, and that's how I started to learn about wine, and that's what kind of lit a pathway for me. But Oregon, and especially the Willamette Valley, has taken its place among the finest wine growing regions in the world. Many Oregon wineries receiving you know, remarkable recognition for the quality of their wines. You know, the other thing that's happened as a result of the success of the Oregon wine industry is, you can read that, of course, in the material we provide you. But just this year, our depletions, which are our sales from wholesalers to their accounts, their restaurant and retail accounts, is up 24% this year. And we had a banner year last year. So it's Oregon wine, Willamette Valley Appellated wine, and our Willamette Valley Vineyard wines are doing extremely well. Now, I wanted to answer several of the questions I received about, well, Jim, tell us about what happened last year when we had that big smoke event in the Willamette Valley. So I have these 4 slides to show you, so you can see the different vineyards and how the smoke has influenced these different vineyards. So you can see the estate vineyard, where we're the southernmost in the valley located vineyard. We have about 60 acres planted and producing where our winery is. And then to the right, you can see that's Bernau Estate Vineyard up in Dundee, and you can see the smoke at a very high level. And then you can come down here and see in the Elton Vineyard, this is in the Eola Hills, how the smoke came from the east to the west and blew south. And then you can see one of our largest vineyards, 190-acre vineyard at Tualatin Estate Vineyard up near Forest Grove, and there's no smoke at all. And so a lot of people don't understand that the Willamette Valley is as big as the state of Connecticut, and it has microclimates, and the wind patterns are different. So we did have a big smoke event in 2020, but very few of our vineyards, very few grapes were affected. In fact, there was a lot of concern on the part of California winemakers who were buying Oregon fruit, and many of them canceled their contracts right before harvest because of the fear of smoke. And we knew that a lot of that fruit was actually really good. And so our staff went out and helped 22 growers have a home for their fruit. We spent $1.2 million more in grape contracts And as a consequence, we were able to fill our cellar and meet the entire production needs of the company with really high quality wine. And the reason why I can say that is that we have, of course, some wines already released. And so here you can see the whole cluster Pinot Noir 2020 with a 91 point Editor's Choice review from Wine Enthusiast magazine, one of the most recognized reviewers in the nation. Here you can see from the International Wine Report, our estate rosé of Pinot Noir, 91 points, 2020 vintage. Here, the 2020 whole cluster rosé of Pinot Noir that you'll see, for example, in Fred Meyer or Safeway or Roth's, places like that, 90 points. And then again, you can see here the Sunset International Wine Competition, which is a nationally recognized competition with a score of 91 points for our 2020 Pinot Gris. So a lot of fear about smoke conditions, but we were very careful about the fruit we brought into the cellar, and we have extraordinary wines from the 2020 vintage. Part of the reason why these wines are so good is that Mother Nature reigned during bloom. And so Mother Nature took the yields way down. And as a consequence, the vine had less work to do to put flavor into their fruit because the crops were lower, the yields were lower. And so we had an extraordinary quality of our fruit. And so we're really glad that we had such a great vintage in 2020. You know, this just is a slide to remind everyone about our commitment to sustainable practice, about our interest in treating all of our neighbors respectfully and all living creatures with care. And so, as you can see here, this is from the Cascade Raptor Center. We actually get orphaned juvenile barn owls, and we in this picture, and I don't know if you can see Joe Perez, he might be behind the image that you see of me on this screen, but Joe Perez is formerly the Oregon chapter president of the American Wine Society, the nation's premier wine consumer organization. And he helped build these, actually he built these boxes, these owl boxes that we've got up in our trees for these homes, for these orphan juvenile barn owls. And they look after our vineyards, a very natural way of taking care of them. And this is Randy Hillier, one of our facilities managers here in this picture. You'll also see some of these designations at the bottom of the screen. You know, we actually were the very first winery in the world to receive the Rainforest Alliance designation for certified cork, natural cork. And of course, as you know, natural cork is vital to the health of the biosphere. All those cork trees in Portugal and North Africa and in Spain and Italy, they're sucking carbon in, they're pumping oxygen out into the atmosphere, and so it's using natural cork is important to the health of our planet. And so if wine enthusiasts want to really do something, it's a small thing if you think about it, but if you want to do something, please use natural cork. It reduces the carbon footprint of every bottle of wine sealed with a natural cork by 25%. You can also see this designation of live and salmon safe. I had the privilege of being a founder in that effort here in Oregon when it first began. And now Oregon wineries and vineyards lead the world in the percentage of sustainably certified vineyards, where very careful practices are used to protect the environment, to protect the groundwater through independent audited standards. So very important to us as Oregonians, and I know that that many of you share that same interest. The other thing too is we're, as you can imagine, solar powered and wind powered. And here's just a slide to some of you probably heard about this already, but we discovered the work that was being done in the laboratories at Cornell University and have been following that work. And so we went to Oregon State University, who is working with Cornell University and with Washington State University and the USDA, and we offered our help to provide the very first commercial application in a vineyard of an autonomous electric robot that would apply UVC light onto the vines. And what this light does, it's a fairly recent discovery, but what it does is it kills powdery mildew, which is the #1 problem in agriculture. And many farmers use fungicides. Now, we don't use fungicides. We use organic sulfur to control powdery mildew. But if this research works, it's very possible that Willamette Valley Vineyards and our industry will lead agriculture in finding ways of reducing potentially harmful fungicides by substituting a completely natural solution, UVC light at night. Now here is an image of Tualatin Estate Vineyards, and this was really my big break. When I merged with Bill Fuller, who was an industry founder, actually was the first practicing winemaker. He was the winemaker Louis Martini and came to Oregon to grow Pinot Noir. And so we merged our businesses back in 1977, and I got the benefit of those early vines that he planted in 1973. He's remarkable. Bill Fuller is still making wine in our cellar. He's on the wine we just released is vintage 46. It's actually a very small production. Owners get a shot at that wine, and it sells out very quickly. But he is 84 years old and he's still making wine in the cellar. And next to him, I don't know if you can see him because of the image of me on the screen, and you might see something differently than I do, I don't know. But that is Efren Loaiza. And Efren Loaiza worked for Bill Fuller, actually worked in the vineyard and in the winery for Bill, and then is now, through the merger, resulted in becoming, over time, the head of our vineyard operations. Actually received the first industry recognition for excellence in vineyard management by the Oregon Wine Board. We're very proud of Efren Loaiza in all the years of service to our industry and to us. In fact, we're so proud of him that he is standing in the vineyard toasting a vineyard planting called Loaiza Vineyard, named after him and his family in their honor. And that's Pinot Gris and Pinot Noir. And this next slide shows you what we're doing there. Here's the Loaiza Vineyard, and you can see there that big white apron, and then you can see a pond. What we wanted to do is we wanted to figure out how we could drip irrigate these vines without pumping water out of the river and as a consequence reducing the water flows of the river or taking the wine out of the ground. And so what we did was we built a catchment pond with a very large apron, which is, you see that white apron. And so when it rains in the winter, that rainwater is wasted. That rainwater goes, it rains, it goes down the Tualatin River, out the Willamette, and out into the Columbia and down into the ocean. And so what we do is we collect the rainwater that's being wasted in the winter, and we use it to irrigate in the summer. It's a very simple solution to the issues of lack of rainfall by just catching the rain when we have an abundance of it, an oversupply of it. We're teaching other farmers, by the way, about how to do this. Here's an image of our Ingram Estate Vineyard in the foreground. There's the original homestead of the Ingram family property. And then you can see at the top of the screen, Elton Vineyard. Now, Elton Ingram was the farmer. Betty O'Brien was his daughter, and she married Dick O'Brien, and she planted that Elton Vineyard in the same year I planted here in 1983. It's actually one of Oregon's most extraordinary vineyards and best and most recognized in the Eola Hills facing the east side, the morning sun. And here you can see there's Betty and Dick. Now, Dick's passed now. Betty is still living there at the vineyard. We're caring for it and have the right to purchase it out of her estate. And you can see in this image, I wanted to show you this image, you can see a very large white granite rock there in the middle of that vineyard. And that's a very special rock. That's a glacial erratic, and it's actually the headstone for the family, but it's a very large white granite rock, which is proof of the Missoula Lake floods, which influenced the soil composition. These, cataclysmic floods that occurred some 14 to 16,000 years ago, bringing the floodwaters down across the eastern Washington, creating the scablands of eastern Washington, coming down the Columbia, carving out the Columbia River Gorge, where you can find rocks from Canada at the top of Multnomah Falls from Canada. And here you can find this white granite rock in the middle of this vineyard. And so this soil is influenced by these remarkable formations that have occurred over time, which is one of the reasons why the Pinot Noir from this location is so special. And there's Dick standing in front of the rock, and now it's his resting place. A remarkable fellow, school teacher, middle school teacher, his entire professional life, creating with his wife Betty one of the most remarkable Pinot Noir vineyards in the Willamette Valley. Here you'll see our owners celebrating their first harvest at Bernau Estate Vineyard. This is the location of the Domaine Willamette Method Champenoise Sparkling Winery, which is under construction. Here we are in 2017. You can see our owners brought their shovels to celebrate the groundbreaking of that facility. And here is the architect's rendering of what this will look like when it's finished. It'll be gorgeous. It will be biodynamically farmed gardens and vineyard, and of course, where sustainably and biodynamically farmed grapes will be made into Method Champenoise sparkling wine. Oregon has a great potential for sparkling wine, and we believe that this will be a great opportunity for us to show the world what the North Willamette can do with Pinot Noir and Chardonnay picked at lower Brix levels, where our cool climate develops flavors at earlier stages of a fruit's development. That's our advantage, and that's what we're going to prove to the world. Now here's the facility, and it's close to where it is now in its phase of construction. We think we'll be able to open in May of 2022. Here you can see a couple of our owners that snuck in and got a sneak peek. These are the Collins from Tennessee, and they're here kind of standing on the mantle there of the fireplace that's in one of the rooms. This is just to show you how much progress we made. We got the support of the governor and of the Oregon Department of Transportation to widen Highway 99 so that we would have access to this world-class winery for Method Champenoise sparkling wine. So it's very prominent in where it's located. So just to the north is Archery Summit Road, and then just to our east is Archery Summit Road, and then just to our west is Sokolblosser. This image is an artist rendering of the facility we're building, a tasting room restaurant that we're building in Lake Oswego. Now this concept really is not really new. In fact, for example, those of you who enjoy Mary Hill's wines from Washington, you know not only do they have the winery there on Columbia River Gorge, but they also have these tasting room restaurants, or they call them tasting rooms and bistros, in Spokane, in Woodinville, Washington, and also on the Vancouver Waterfront. In fact, we actually have a facility we're going to be building right above them on the second floor. So this is not an unusual concept, but what we want to do with this concept is to really grow it beyond something of just a few. We really want to grow it. And I got this idea from following a winery out in the east called Cooper's Hawk. They now have built 44 winery restaurants. They have over 350,000 wine club members. They're selling something like over 800,000 cases of wine a year. I mean, it's just phenomenal. They're only about 18 years old, and they're now over a $500 million company in value, employing over 4,500 people. And so this is not an idea that's unusual, but there's a great opportunity for us to tell the Oregon story by taking it on the road with these tasting room restaurants locations. Now we're having a special kind of hard hat groundbreaking for this facility in Lake Oswego. The address is 55 South State Street. We asked people to RSVP. It's to be held on Sunday, September 19th from 3 to 5. And for owners, we're asking owners and prospective owners to come and hear about what we're doing. And we're going to have a groundbreaking photo taken right in front of this facility at 4 p.m. on Sunday the 19th. So please, if you can make it, it's fun to be able to be in those photos because they're historic. Here is an artist rendering of the location on the Vancouver Waterfront. This is right above the tasting room and bistro of Maryhill. And I don't know how many of you have been on the Vancouver Waterfront, but we have high confidence of the success of this location. You know, one of the things that's a little different about Cooperstock and Willamette Valley Vineyards is that Cooperstock doesn't sell any of their wine through distribution, whereas we do. We're distributed in, I think, all of one state of the nation, 49 states. And we sell through Kroger's, you know, Fred Meyer, you know, Safeway, you know, many other retailers around the country. And when we have learned that every time we establish a physical presence in a community, we see a ripple effect in the wines that are purchased in other restaurants and in retail. And that's why we think we not only will have a great opportunity to serve our owners and wine club members in these locations where they live, but also to greatly influence the growth of our brand because of the awareness in the community. We find that to be true even in Oregon. Our largest grocery store accounts, believe it or not, are the closest to the winery, which you wouldn't imagine that would be the case, but that is the case. And so being physically present in a community, we think will have a remarkable opportunity for us to tell the Oregon story and to continue to make wine for those people just learning about Oregon wine. Now, here's a facility we have built and are operating now, and this is in Folsom, California, in the historic district of Folsom. It's in a roundhouse. You can't see it all if my image is covering that part of the screen, but it's actually a reproduction of a building of the historic kind of steam engine roundhouse. And we're on that second floor above a seafood restaurant where we have, you can see in this picture, great places to entertain our owners, but also to sign up wine club members and serve the public. And behind there, and you can see in the background, you can see an unusual barrel blending system. That's where we're offering a local wine brand called Natoma. And this enables people to learn about winemaking by doing their own blending. And here we're going to be, we've just built this blending system. This is our second blending system, but this is for Dijon clones of Pinot Noir. This is in the Roth barrel room. It's all built and it's ready to go. And this allows people, owners, club members, and others to try their hand at learning about each different natural clone of Pinot Noir and then blending it themselves. And this machine, this device, allows them to calibrate just what percentages they want from each clone and to experiment with that. So it's kind of like being a winemaker. Now, this is done by other wineries. Concrete, for example, in Napa is pretty well known for doing this. But you have to use pipettes and graduated cylinders and have a calculator. It takes quite a bit of time to do the math. Whereas this actually does it all for you. So it's a lot of fun. This is just a picture of one of the things we're doing for our owners. We have a number of owners who like RVing, have large motorhomes, and they like traveling. And so our location here on Interstate 5 makes it very convenient to them. So we needed to have a place for them to bring these very large motorhomes. And so we're providing this hospitality amenity for those owners who schedule them in advance. Here you can see some of the slips that are for these big RVs. And then you can see the bathhouse that's just being finished in construction. We know we will be fully operational by the next travel season. Now, this is just to give you an idea of where these wine enthusiast owners live and their number. We're very unusual in this regard, where we have more owners of our winery than any other winery. That's anywhere. And we're greatly benefited from that. You know that we are looking for preferred stock owners who will take a keen interest in their winery and their wines. And in fact, we know from experience that our preferred stockholders more than cover the cost of the preferred stock through their own purchases, even at a discount, of the wines that they buy. So this is a unique business model and a very powerful one. We also have 8,600 wine club members, but when we build these tasting room and restaurants in these different locations, just like Cooper's Hawk has done, you're going to see that number rise. I just wanted to show you, how easy it is for you as owners to keep track of how your company's doing. We report, we're NASDAQ listed, we report quarterly, and we have reviewed financials quarterly and audited financials annually. And you can rely on the information that's being provided to you through something as simple as keeping track of it on your phone. Here you can see, actually, this is the close today of our WVVIP preferred stock on the NASDAQ. It closed at $7.20 a share, which is considerably more than what we're selling it for directly from the winery. Not saying that that's what it'll always be, but clearly there's a lot of interest in the stock right now. We have so far today, we've sold in this offering 3.6 million. We've got over 1,180 new subscriptions. That averages out at about $3,050 per subscriber. And they're usually partners, husband and wife or partners. But I expect that we'll probably sell at least over half of this offering that's presently available by the end of this month. And I just wanted to share with you, we have about 457 that live in Oregon, 457 families, 94 families that live in Washington, 63 in California, especially around that Sacramento area where we have the Wineworks, the Willamette Wineworks, and about 193 other subscribers from around the country. Hopefully in locations where we will be bringing Willamette Valley Vineyards tasting room and restaurants in the future. The other thing I wanted to share with you is for those of you who you want to make sure that you understand the financial strength of the company you're investing in. And so that's why we provide that financial information to you. But you can also look it up right on your phone, just in this, by as simple as this. We had net income, for example, last year of 3.4 million, which was up 35% from the prior year, 2019, at 2.59. That's net income. Our EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, in 2020 was 6.9 million. That's our EBITDA. And so you can multiply that times industry averages. You can Google those to figure out what those are and to come up with what is the relative value of this company based upon EBITDA. Our EBITDA was 5.7 million in 2019. So you can see we had a really good year in 2020. And that's because despite the fact that our tasting rooms were closed down for quite a period of time, despite the fact that our restaurants were closed down for a significant period of time, our owners really weighed in heavy. And as a consequence, our owners produced 1/3 of our revenues at retail in 2020. So it's our business model really does work well. Now, in that material, you'll also receive financial information about our quarters. And in the second quarter, you can look at our balance sheet and it'll say we've got 79 million in total assets. We have 18 million in total liabilities. So that gives you kind of a sense of just how much financial strength the company has. And of that total equity of $61 million, I'm proud to tell you that because of the wonderful people we have here, this remarkable team of performers, among them, you've heard of Christine, of course, Mandy, but many others that are in the company. We have retained 25 million in earnings, $25 million in retained earnings of our small little company as we have grown it. This is just a slide to show you what you'll receive. You'll receive the preferred stock certificate in January, and also your first set of business cards, to which you will be able to purchase additional business cards if you so choose in the future. And I know that our shareholders enjoy spreading the enthusiasms that they have for the industry and for the winery. And so we give them this tool to do that. And as a consequence, we found a whole lot more new customers, restaurateurs, retailers, and just enthusiasts as a result of our owners spreading the word. And this is just a last image to show you our vineyard. And this is the Bernau block and the view up to the estate. And this is kind of just to end the presentation with the spirit of you know, of what we're doing as owners together. Now, I have received some questions, and I hope I've answered most of your questions in this presentation. I hope many of you are still with me. It's quite a long presentation I've given to you today, and but I did want to answer one I got from Robert Foster. He wanted to know about succession, and there you're looking at succession right there on the screen. That's Christine Clare. Christine Clare has been in training as our winery director, as my second, as the person who is taking the time to learn everything about this company. She's an entrepreneur in her own right. She came to work here actually when she was in college at Oregon State University as an intern. She actually started even years before that selling friendship bracelets in our tasting room as a youngster. Because she didn't live, actually, she lived within sight of the winery. And then she went off to start her own business in Southern Oregon, making her own wine, have her own wine brand. And then I talked her into coming back to join me and help grow this business. So it's a privilege to have her in training as our future leader. And let me tell you, she's getting a lot of training, and she's been quite patient. And she'll have to even be more patient because I'm only 68 years old, and I've told the staff they're going to have to carry me out. I love what we're doing together, and so I'm hoping that she'll have a lot more time in training. But anyway, we do have a staggered board of directors, and that staggered terms are to allow continuity in the business. And of course, we do have a remarkable team of people. We're up to almost 300 employees. That might shock you a little bit, but we do everything, right? We grow the grapes, we tend the grapes, we make the wine, we sell the wine, and that's why we have so many employees. We're very integrated as a company. And as a founder, I have put my shares in trust. My wife and I have put our shares in trust, and when they will remain in trust when we pass, and those shares will be voted by the management, key managers of the company, and they'll be continued to give them a role in the direction of the business, and confidence that all the time they're putting into building this company will be rewarded because they'll have a seat at the table in making important decisions. So I hope that answers that question. I know that there's always some thought in somebody's mind that, gee, if the company, what if the company, sells? Well, I'm certainly not going to do that. If people want to buy and sell, they can buy and sell every day on the NASDAQ, right, with our stock. But this is not kind of some get-rich-quick scheme by anybody. We're here to tell the Oregon wine story and to build a great company doing it with people we love doing it with. And so that's why we'd love to have you join us. So now, Christine, have you got some questions you want me to answer?
We do. We've had a really active chat. Over 97 answered questions, but we have quite a few that we thought were best for you to address. So we've saved those to now. So I think some of the ones that I think are good to start is from Bruce Smith. His subscription was recently accepted, so we're really excited that he's joining us. But he has a question of when can he start taking advantage of the benefits, specifically that wine credit?
Well, I'm told that October 1st is when he'll be able to use the wine credit, which is far in advance of receiving a dividend. So, and then he gets 15% more. So, and that's my advice. My advice is, that gives you a real advantage right off the bat.
Perfect. I think another question to answer would be from David. He asked, are these shares general obligations of the company? Are they secured by all the assets of the company?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. This is preferred stock. This actually, as preferred stock, comes ahead of common. So that when I started the company, I sold common stock through a Securities and Exchange Commission authorized sale of common stock. And I did that on several occasions to build the capital base of the company. Now, preferred stock actually comes ahead of common. in the event of a dissolution of the company and the sale of the assets. So the preferred stockholders are secured ahead of common. But preferred stockholders don't have the privileges a common stockholder has with respect to voting. Common stockholders can vote their shares, whereas preferred stockholders get their dividend and they get to be ahead in line before common. So that's kind of gives you an explanation. And you own all the assets. It's everything that the company has. It's titled. It's titled to the company. You own it all.
Thank you, Jim. Another one from Marvin asked, how is the stock managed? Do you sell via your broker or do you sell it back to the company?
Okay, it's freely tradable preferred stock. It's listed on the NASDAQ. And so it can be bought or sold on the NASDAQ. It's not purchased back by the company. And people do buy the stock and sell it. Some people change their minds and buy it back. I've had shareholders, preferred shareholders buy common, and there's a lot of people who are happy they did. Especially since we announced our strategy of growing our business through these tasting room restaurants. The company's generated a lot of interest because people understand the power of that idea, especially when you have wine enthusiasts who are owners. And so that's why you'll see, if you go online and you type in WVVI, which is the trading symbol of NASDAQ for our common stock, you'll see that since we announced this strategy and this offering, what's happened to the common stock.
This is one where I know you're going to have to be, careful in how you answer, but we've had some questions from Randall, and he wanted to know what's a reasonable growth rate to expect from the company.
Boy, I can't answer that because one of the things that we don't do is we don't provide any form of earnings guidance or any form of performance guidance. And partly because we're so small, we couldn't possibly afford to do that. Plus, we're so small that there's all kinds of things that could affect us, whether it's the weather or whether it's a major distributor or retailer or what have you. So the best thing I can do is to say this, is that look at the past, look at our historical information, look at what you learned from that. Remember, we've been in business now for 38 years. And as a public company, since 1989. So you got a lot of financial information you can look at, a lot of history. And you can see our performance, which, by the way, I'm really proud of. I'm proud of our staff and I'm proud of our owners for driving that performance. I had a shareholder when we first started tell me, he said, Jim, this is the first stock I own where I can drink myself to profitability. Now, he was teasing me, of course, but then he went ahead and did it. And so did a lot of other common stockholders, which has led us to so much success today. One of the questions that was asked about succession, and I've answered part of that, but one of the best ways to make sure that we have an ability to continue to grow our business is to remain very attractive to our employees, to continue to challenge them, to continue to give them opportunities, to continue to treat them well, to give them the ability to earn a stake, which we do for our key managers. And that's really the strongest way to succession plan, is to grow your business carefully, thoughtfully, in many ways conservatively, with money and with risk, but at the same time, using the information that we gather to know where the special opportunities are and then exploit them rapidly. So that's really our best succession plan, is what we do together to find the opportunities, to lead the industry, and to produce value for the community. When we're delivering value to the community and we're making great wines for consumers at a fair price, that's the best succession plan for all of us.
I think that really well translates into Albert's question here of, we've been on an aggressive building schedule with our Walla Walla vineyards and other locations. And he asked, why so much fast growth and what is your vision for the future?
what we needed to be able to tell the Oregon wine story from these unique American viticultural areas. And so Christine and I, back in 2015, we were presented with a unique opportunity from Norm McKibben and Chris Figgins of the Walla Walla area, one of the remarkable winemakers, Marty Clubb. They invited us to look hard and invest in buy a property that they owned in this development called Sylvain, which is in the Walla Walla Valley, AVA. But it's up on a hill above a vineyard that they own called Seven Hills. And so we decided, you know what, we need to really think this through. Think about how many unique valleys there are in Oregon where we can tell a unique story about each one of these growing conditions, where different varieties perform very well, like Cabernet Sauvignon, for example, in the Walla Walla AVA, or Syrah in the Rocks District, or Cabernet Franc in the Rogue Valley, or Tempranillo in the Umpqua Valley, or different Method Champenoise sparkling wine from Pinot Noir in the Dundee Hills of AVA, or Pinot Noir from the Eola Hills AVA, Eola Amity Hills AVA. And so what that did was that filled our quiver of wines full of these unique, small lot, extraordinary wines. So now we're ready. Now we're ready to go out with that full quiver and offer a full dining and tasting experience in communities where people live. And that is our outpost strategy, these tasting room restaurants that we're now building, of which we have, as you know about Vancouver, you know about Lake Oswego. We have a lease on a property that's under construction in Happy Valley, and great location in Happy Valley. And then we also have a commitment on a lease in the historic downtown of Bend, Oregon. So those are our four. As you know about the fifth, which we've already built and are operating, which is in the Willamette Wineworks, which is in Folsom, California.
Another one we have here from David. He's asking about why we finance our growth through preferred shares and not consider taking on debt or looking at other forms like bonds, where the interest can be tax deductible.
Yeah, it's a good question. The reason why we prefer preferred stock over debt is that preferred stock, in the way we do it, actually has a lower cost to us. And that's because the preferred stockholder is so active in promoting their wines and buying their wines. So the netting it out, actually our preferred stock, the cost of acquiring capital is very, very low because it's a customer acquisition strategy at the same time. Now we're very unique, right? Someday they'll be teaching this at Harvard and at Stanford. But right now we're way out in front, and we're going to capitalize on this strategy as much as we can. We're unique in this regard because we're NASDAQ listed, which means we can go and blue sky in these various states and sell stock for these new locations to local wine enthusiasts because of our NASDAQ listing without incurring the cost of registration of a public offering in each state. So we're very uniquely positioned to grow our business. And we already sell our wine through distributors in those markets. So think of the multiplier effect that we can get from this strategy. So that's the reason. I mean, bankers don't drink that much wine. And generally when they come and see you, they'd like to have, I'd like to get a couple bottles from you for their visit. And so it's much better to have bankers like preferred stockholders who drink the wine and tell their neighbors and share their wine with their friends. The other side of it is bonds, is we could do bonds. And that may be a future strategy. I'm not sure how attractive it would be to a wine enthusiast investor. The advantage of preferred stock is its equity. With preferred stock, we raise this capital, we provide a dividend, but it's equity in the company. It's not a cash flow drain on the company to pay that preferred stock. It's already a freely tradable security on the NASDAQ, and it's equity. So that gives the company actually a lot of financial strain because we don't have the cash flow drain. So we've actually demonstrated by charting out what are the cash flows of these various alternatives. And we have the strongest cash flow into the future through this strategy.
We also had a couple questions related to how the company's faring with climate change and things we're doing to protect our business.
Part of it is, of course, trying to be as best a good example as possible to others. And so you see in our conduct, in how we grow our grapes and make our wine, how we operate our business, we do everything we can to walk as softly as we can to produce the smallest amount of impact, environmental impact, carbon impact as possible. And we're continuing to work on that. But you'll find that we're big advocates of natural cork, because those 10 million acres of natural cork forests in Portugal and Spain and so on are very important to the world's biosphere in converting carbon to oxygen and sequestering carbon. So that's part of it, is how we go about what we're doing. But the other part, as you've seen, is we planted vineyards in different locations. So we're very heterogeneous in spreading our vineyard risk. You've seen us plant at much higher elevations, which gives us those cooler climates. And so that's one of the things we've been doing. The Willamette Valley is unique in that it's actually, and it's not easy to say this to you, because the world is hurting, and you know that. And you know there are people in the world that are going to be hurting a lot. So it's not easy to say this. But Willamette Valley winemakers have benefited, frankly, from the changes in this weather. Our yields have gotten higher. There's more land available to plant that was less desirable when it wasn't facing directly into the south sun to get its warmth, to ripen our fruit. And so that's why you've seen our scores, for example, Oregon winemakers' scores of their wines increase over time. Oregon's had successive vintages of remarkable vintages, which has really fueled the interest in Oregon wine. And so for at least the time being, and who knows how much change will occur in the future, I'm hoping that we as human beings will be able, there's lots of things we can do. We just have to have the strength to do it, and decide as a people what we can do to limit the impact on climate. One of the things we can do is we can stop using so many aluminum cans. Aluminum cans are made with coal, fired with coal, principally in China. And so going to glass using natural cork is a way to enjoy wine, is a better way to go environmentally. You've seen in this presentation about how we're using catchment ponds to catch rainwater during the winter when the rain is wasted. So we're doing a number of things to make sure that we've developed kind of a way of spreading risk and also benefiting from the changes that we do see. Look at all the land that's been unlocked by the changes that have occurred. It was previously cheaper and unsuitable because it wasn't warm enough. So those are the things that aren't easy to talk about, because it's in a context of really a real problem that we have to solve as human beings.
Another question in similar vein is, what is the competitive outlook with ongoing issues in France, whether it be the spring freezes or tariffs? In a strict sense, we compete really with every other beverage. We compete with every other producer, in a strict sense. But really, when you look at the market and you look at, okay, where do we sell our wines? Where are our growth opportunities? It's really much. It's really much different than what you might think. We compete with the French very little, actually. We probably compete a lot more with California producers. But we do sell our wines and our Pinot Noirs on the East Coast.
where there have been a long-standing relationship with French winemakers who make cool climate varieties. And now we're making warm climate varieties. We'll be competing even with those warm climate producers as well. But the market is so big. So you have to think about this. There's 35 million people in the United States, just the United States, who buy wines of the kind that we make in our price points. About 35 million consumers. Now, we just need a sliver, just a sliver of that. We have 20,000 owners, and that's like husband and wife or partners, and which means we've got about 10,000 households. Well, there's potentially 15 million or more households in the United States that could be, at least theoretically, owners of Willamette Valley Vineyards. So I told my staff, I said, look, let's go out and find 100,000 households and raise $3,000 a piece from them. And that'll give you $300 million to continue to grow our business. So that I'm trying to teach our employees that the market is enormous. When we started here at Willamette Valley Vineyards and we got to a certain size, I actually thought that we wouldn't sell any more wine in Oregon. What's amazed me is we continue to sell a lot more wine in Oregon. So even in Oregon, the potential for our brand is really not fully developed.
I think another question here from Richard is, what happens if the offering is not fully subscribed?
We have 12 months to sell this offering with our registration we've done with the Securities and Exchange Commission. We have never, ever had a time that we did not sell out the stock offering. So that will be new if that happens. If it does, then that's what we've sold, and the offering period will terminate unless we go back to the SEC and ask them to extend the time to sell the balance of the shares of that offering. And that is obviously an option that you can do. You have to make sure you provide new updated financials and go through a process of review. But we've never had to do that. In fact, our last offering sold out in record time. It surprised all of us.
I think that answers the questions we got. So was there? Oh, that's it. Thank you, Jim.
Well, Christine, thank you for helping. Mandy, I know you're there. Mandy Morgan, thank you. Carol Astley, in marketing was helping me a lot put this presentation together. Dana Fritsch, of course, my executive assistant, our administrative manager. You're hearing a lot of names of women, and I'm actually very proud of them. 64% of our managers are women. Over half of our workforce in Willamette Valley Vineyards are women. And you know what? Over half the wine in America is bought by women. So we've designed our company to reflect our market. We try and be as diverse as possible to be attractive to all of consumers and to learn from them what the opportunities are. We're very proud of the heritage of our Latinx growers that serve as a foundation for this company. And we're going to have a celebration. And I hope you'll all come to it, because I think it's going to be next year in the fall when the COVID is past. We're going to have a celebration at the Loaiza Vineyard. And the Loaiza family from around the globe, and especially from Mexico, will travel to join us in celebrating that remarkable achievement that their family, their larger family, their greater family has had in the Oregon wine industry, and to see that beautiful vineyard that is named in their honor. Anyway, thank you all very much for joining me. I hope that you'll become enthusiastic brand advocates for Willamette Valley Vineyards and for all other Oregon winemakers in the Oregon wine industry. And of course, a faithful consumer and advisor to me and to others here. So thank you very much.